Let's begin with a hard truth. Time is the only resource you can never get back, and yet many of us waste it mindlessly, repeatedly, on things that are not only unproductive but actively harmful to our goals, our mental clarity, and even our biology. So let me ask you directly, what are you trading your time for? In neuroscience, we know that attention is a limited currency. Where you place your attention determines the chemical state of your brain. When you're constantly checking your phone, scrolling for dopamine hits, engaging in meaningless arguments, or procrastinating with pseudo-work, you're rewiring your brain for distraction, not depth. Here's the truth, you're not just wasting time, you're training your brain to stay unfocused, and if you keep doing it, you'll get really good at being mediocre, but there's good news, the human brain is adaptable. With intention and discipline, you can regain control. You can refocus your mind, reclaim your hours, and realign your life toward what actually matters. So today, I challenge you stop wasting time on. Mindless scrolling algorithms are designed to hijack your dopamine system. Every swipe is a hit, but the cost is long-term focus and creativity. Overthinking without action thinking is valuable. Ruminating is not. Your brain thrives on cycles of thought and execution. Reflect, then move. Negative self-talk, your internal dialogue, shapes your neurochemistry. Would you let someone talk to your friend the way you talk to yourself? No, then stop allowing it. Seeking validation, when your motivation is built on external approval, your dopamine system becomes dependent. Real growth comes from internal goals and consistency. Multitasking the brain doesn't truly multitask. It switches rapidly and exhausts itself. Want to be elite? Do one thing deeply. Waiting for motivation is unreliable. Action leads to motivation, not the other way around. Start first. The brain follows momentum. We live in a time when distractions are not only common, they're engineered. Every ping, buzz, and notification is a digital interruption designed to hijack your attention system. And the longer you let your brain adapt to those interruptions, the harder it becomes to sustain meaningful focus. This isn't just a productivity issue, it's a neurological one. Your brain works on a system of salience, meaning it learns to prioritize what you engage with most. So if you spend hours a day jumping between apps, messages, and videos, your brain starts treating novelty, not depth, as the priority. In effect, you're training your nervous system to crave stimulation instead of progress. And this has consequences. Focus isn't just about willpower, it's about neurobiology. Your brain has circuits, especially in the prefrontal cortex, that govern impulse control, decision making, and long-term planning. These circuits are strengthened with intentional practice, but when you're constantly reacting instead of directing, those circuits weaken. That's how people become stuck in cycles they know are unproductive. They say, "I don't know why I can't stop," or "I just don't feel motivated," but it's not a mystery, it's repetition, it's neural conditioning, and here's where people get it wrong. They wait to feel like doing the right thing. But motivation is not the starting line, it's the outcome of action. Let me explain. When you take an action toward a meaningful goal, even a small one, you create a dopamine pulse. That pulse says, "This is worth doing again." It reinforces the behavior. So the way out of distraction isn't by thinking your way out, it's by acting your way out. Let's break this further down into what you're really wasting time on and why it matters. Time waster #1. Passive consumption. You might think watching one more episode, one more video, or reading one more thread online is harmless. But passive consumption teaches your brain that being fed information is easier than creating or applying it, and your brain adapts to what's easiest. Over time, you'll find yourself losing the edge to think independently, to problem solve deeply, or to create something meaningful. Passive habits create passive minds. Instead, adopt deliberate input. Ask yourself, is this helping me grow or numbing me from what I should be doing? Time waster #2. Emotional reactivity, anger, comparison, envy. These are not just feelings. They're neurological events that consume energy and bias your cognition. When you allow yourself to emotionally react to everything online or in your life, you're actually draining the cognitive resources required for meaningful work. Your brain only has so much bandwidth in a day. Emotional volatility burns it fast. The solution: respond, don't react. Train yourself to pause, literally 3 to 5 seconds before responding. That pause recruits your prefrontal cortex and calms your limbic system. It's a micro adjustment, but one with massive long-term effects. Time waster #3. Escaping boredom too quickly. Boredom is not a problem. It's a signal. It means your brain is craving stimulation, but not necessarily that it needs distraction. In fact, the most creative and productive insights occur after a short period of boredom. But if you constantly interrupt boredom with stimulation, you never get to the deeper layers of thought. Let your mind wander sometimes. Don't always grab your phone in idle moments. Walk, stare, think. Your brain needs that space to synthesize, to plan, to imagine. Time waster #4. Doing everything at half effort. This is the trap of pseudo-productivity. Answering emails while watching videos, multitasking across tabs, or switching between tasks every few minutes. Here's the neurological cost. Every time you switch tasks, your brain engages a task-switching network. This process requires cognitive effort, and frequent switching can deplete neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine faster. That's why you feel mentally foggy after a few hours of scattered work. Deep work, on the other hand, trains your brain to operate in a sustained mode of focus. Over time, you increase your attentional capacity and energy reserves. So instead of doing many things poorly, do fewer things well. Time invested with full presence has a compounding effect. Time waster #5. Talking about it more than doing it. The human brain gets a dopamine response not just from achievement, but from the anticipation of it. That means talking about your goals, planning them endlessly, or fantasizing about success feels good, but can actually delay real action. The solution is to build in a bias toward execution, small wins. Fast starts, unpolished action. You don't need a perfect system. You need momentum. The brain rewards completion. Every task you finish gives you a dopamine spike, reinforcing the habit of doing, not just dreaming. Time waster #6. Ignoring your biology. If you're trying to perform at a high level while sacrificing sleep, avoiding sunlight, or ignoring your circadian rhythm, you're fighting your own hardware. Sleep isn't a luxury. It's your brain's maintenance system. Memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and neuroplasticity all occur during deep sleep. Sacrifice that, and you reduce your capacity to focus, recall, and regulate. Sunlight in the morning, even just 10 minutes, anchors your biological clock. It increases early-day cortisol, which boosts alertness in a healthy, rhythmic way. It also sets a 16-hour timer for melatonin release at night, helping you wind down on time. Nutrition matters too. Blood sugar crashes, dehydration, and micronutrient deficiencies impair brain performance more than most people realize. Your brain isn't separate from your body. To use your time well, you must treat your biology as a non-negotiable foundation, not an afterthought. Neurobiological strategies to reclaim time. Start the day with focus, not reactivity. Delay digital input. Let your own thoughts be the first ones you hear. Use the 90-minute ultradian rhythm. Your brain works in cycles. Use 90-minute blocks of deep work. Then take a 10-15-minute break to reset. Anchor attention with visual focus. Pick a point, minimize peripheral distractions, and keep your eyes stable. This boosts internal focus. Leverage the power of stillness. 5 minutes of intentional breathing, physiological sighs, or box breathing can recalibrate your nervous system and sharpen your mental state. End the day with reflection. Instead of collapsing into entertainment, spend 5 minutes reviewing what went well, what you learned, and what you'll do tomorrow. That closes the cognitive loop. All of this, every distraction you eliminate, Every moment of focused effort you reclaim isn't just about time management, it's about self-respect, it's about neuroplastic mastery, and it's about deliberately shaping the life your brain is designed to build. When you finally stop wasting time on what doesn't matter, your nervous system doesn't distinguish between productive time and wasted time in a moral sense. It simply adapts to what you do repeatedly. This means every action you take is reinforcing a circuit. You're either strengthening the default mode of distraction, or you're reinforcing executive control, discipline, and clarity. What you practice, you become. If you check your phone 200 times a day, you're wiring your brain for compulsive novelty seeking. If you scroll endlessly, you're blunting your dopamine sensitivity. That's why things that once excited you no longer do. That's not burnout, it's a physiological recalibration of your reward system. The antidote isn't just to do less, it's to replace low-value behaviors with high-impact protocols. Train your brain like you'd train a muscle. It doesn't need comfort, it needs stimulus, challenge, and recovery. One of the most powerful habits you can build is tasking with intensity. Choose one objective, remove all unnecessary input. Set a timer, commit. Even 25 minutes of pure focus has the power to do more for your brain and results than 3 hours of fragmented multitasking. This level of focus requires friction. Your brain will resist it at first. That resistance isn't a sign to stop, it's a signal of neural adaptation beginning. When you lean into it, you're expanding your ability to stay with hard things longer. That's neuroplasticity in motion. The mistake most people make is expecting it to feel good right away, but the reward system in the brain doesn't always fire during the process, it fires after completion. So if you chase comfort, you'll rarely reach progress. But if you chase completion, your brain will reward you naturally. Another key principle to understand is state-dependent productivity. Your brain performs best in different states depending on the task. If you need to be creative or plan long-term, you want a calm, diffuse thinking state, often achieved through walking, journaling, or low-pressure conversation. But if you need to execute a task with precision, writing, coding, solving, you want an alert but not anxious state. This is best achieved through elevated focus, stable posture, visual anchoring, and minimized distractions. If you waste time trying to work while in the wrong state, you create internal conflict. You feel unmotivated not because you're lazy, but because your state doesn't match the task. A practical tool to regulate your state is physiological sighing. 2 quick inhales through the nose, 1 long exhale through the mouth. Just 1-3 cycles can reduce internal stress and return you to a more focused state. That's not philosophy, that's a hardwired reflex in the brainstem that directly lowers your physiological arousal. You can also use movement as a reset button. Short bursts of physical movement, walking, stretching, squatting, help release neurochemicals that enhance attention and mood. Time wasted in low-energy loops can be recovered quickly by simply moving. One more important aspect, stop wasting time negotiating with yourself. Every time you ask yourself whether or not to do the thing you already know is necessary, you create cognitive dissonance. That back and forth drains more energy than the task itself. Build a habit of non-negotiable action. Wake up, move, sit down to work, begin. You don't need to feel like it, you need to act like it. The brain doesn't reward intention, it rewards repetition. Make execution your default. Make it easier to start than to stall. You'll also want to develop the ability to control your sensory environment. Sound, light, and posture all affect your level of focus. Noise, especially unpredictable noise, activates your brain's threat detection system. That's why open offices, group chats, and constant pings make it so hard to concentrate. Use noise, canceling headphones or ambient sound to reassert control. Lighting matters too. Your circadian rhythm is regulated by blue light exposure early in the day and dim light at night. Bright screens at midnight confuse your brain's timekeeping system and impair the quality of your sleep, which then affects your cognition the next day. Fix your light and you fix your timing and posture. It's not just about ergonomics. Your posture influences neurochemical tone. A collapsed posture signals defeat to the nervous system. An upright, engaged posture increases alertness and primes the system for action. Don't underestimate what your body is telling your brain. As for people, surrounding yourself with others who waste time, chase novelty, or avoid responsibility will wire you for the same. That's not judgment. It's neuroscience via mirror neurons. Your brain is constantly scanning others for behavioral norms. When you spend time with focused, intentional people, your nervous system recalibrates to match. That's the power of aligned proximity. Don't just avoid toxic people. Seek out disciplined ones. There's another hidden time waster we haven't touched yet: decision fatigue. When you leave too many choices open or constantly reevaluate what to do next, you burn glucose in your prefrontal cortex and reduce the quality of each decision that follows. You want structure, constraints, systems. Decide your schedule in advance. Limit your to-do list to 3 high-impact items. Use time blocking. Automate or eliminate low-value decisions like meals, clothing, and routines. This doesn't make you robotic. It makes you free. Because here's the paradox: discipline isn't restriction, it's liberation. When you stop wasting time on decisions that don't matter, you gain the bandwidth for those that do. So how does this all tie together? You don't need more time. You need more intention, more structure, more neural alignment with the person you want to become. Each behavior you repeat rewires your brain. Each moment you choose focus over distraction upgrades your cognition. Each choice to act, even imperfect, moves you one layer closer to mastery. There are no shortcuts to this, but there are mechanisms. And if you align your habits with how your brain actually works, you stop wasting time because your entire system is aimed toward purposeful action. Another underestimated time waster is the constant pursuit of optimization without execution. People spend hours researching the best app, the perfect planner, the ideal morning routine, yet they do little with the time they still have. This is a disguised form of procrastination, and it's deceptive because it feels productive. But the brain doesn't change from passive planning, it changes from doing. If you want to rewire your habits, remember this: the most effective behavior change strategies are simple, repeated, and connected to a meaningful reward. That reward doesn't have to be external, it can be internal: the satisfaction of completion, the feeling of control, the quiet pride that you followed through on something. What you're really building is self-trust. Every time you say, "I'll do it," and don't, your brain records that failure as data. If repeated enough, you begin to associate your own goals with disappointment, even if unconsciously. You're not just wasting time, you're eroding your identity. But the opposite is also true. When you do what you said you'd do, even if it's small, you build internal credibility. Your word starts to matter. You stop needing external motivation because you've become the kind of person who follows through. That's a neurological shift in your identity system. This is what researchers call self-directed neuroplasticity, the ability to consciously alter your brain through intention and action. It's not abstract, it's physical. Every time you override a distraction, your anterior cingulate cortex, the region involved in conflict monitoring, becomes more efficient. Every time you delay gratification, your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex strengthens its control over your impulses. The ability to stay focused, to resist distraction, and to pursue long-term goals isn't genetic, it's trained, but only if you stop wasting your brain's learning capacity on behaviors that teach it the opposite. Ask yourself, what am I actually reinforcing today? Not what you wish you were doing. What are you practice, hour to hour, day to day? Are you reinforcing clarity or confusion, depth or dopamine, alignment or avoidance? Time isn't the issue, patterns are. Most people don't need more information. They need to stop leaking their attention. Attention is energy. Where you place it determines what grows in your life. That's not just philosophy, that's a reflection of synaptic potentiation. Neurons that fire together wire together. So if you keep firing the same circuits of worry, distraction, and delay, those are the pathways that become dominant. But when you interrupt them, replace them, and repeat that new pattern, you literally reshape your brain. The beautiful part, the brain is always listening, always adapting. So even if you've wasted years, you can begin to redirect the system now. It won't happen instantly, but it will happen reliably. If you want to accelerate this process, engage in behaviors that activate the neuromodulators of learning and motivation: dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine. Dopamine increases your drive. You don't need more of it artificially. You need to rewire where it comes from. Earn it through progress, not stimulation. Norepinephrine increases alertness, movement, cold exposure, and goal. Directed work all stimulate its release. Use those tools. Acetylcholine improves focus. Deep work, deliberate learning, and curiosity enhance its presence. Cultivate environments where those things thrive. If you're constantly distracted, overstimulated, or overstressed, these systems become dysregulated. That's when people start to say, "I don't feel like myself," or "my brain's just not working like it used to." It's not imaginary, it's biochemical, but it's also reversible through consistency. To reclaim your time and retrain your focus, build your days around inputs that support mental clarity. Wake with intention. No screen for the first 30-60 minutes. Let your internal systems orient first. Start with movement. Even 2-3 minutes of light exercise changes your neurochemical state for the better. Prioritize sunlight exposure. 10-15 minutes outside in the morning regulates circadian timing and enhances alertness. Block time for deep work. 1 block in the morning when focus is highest. Protect it like it matters, because it does. Use transition rituals. When you end one task and start another, take 30-60 seconds to reset. Don't carry the residue from one to the next. Respect sleep. 90 minutes before bed, eliminate screens. Signal to your nervous system that recovery is coming. This structure isn't rigid, it's freedom through rhythm. When your biology supports your behavior, you gain effortless momentum, and that momentum compounds. The alternative is what most people live: scattered, overstimulated days filled with micro decisions and low-grade anxiety, constantly playing catch-up with no clear aim. You can't outthink that pattern. You have to interrupt it. Remember, you are not behind, but you are responsible. What you do today is the training ground for who you'll become. Not in theory, in circuitry. You're not just managing time, you're shaping your nervous system, which in turn shapes your behavior, energy, output, and identity. Every time you say no to distraction, you say yes to alignment. Every time you act with intention, you rewire for control. Every focused block of effort is an investment in future clarity, and clarity, once earned, saves more time than any hack, app, or trick ever could. Another point worth emphasizing is that your attention is not just a cognitive function, it's a finite biological resource. The average person makes between 30, 0, 0, 0, and 35, 0, 0, 0 decisions per day, most of them unconsciously. Every one of those decisions draws from a limited pool of cognitive and attentional fuel. That's why seemingly small distractions, like checking your phone for 1 minute, can lead to a full 20-25 minutes of reduced cognitive depth, not because of the time itself, but because of what it does to your attentional momentum. You've broken the chain of focus, and now your brain has to rebuild it. This is called attention residue, and it's a real, measurable drag on performance. So what can you do? You train your brain to return faster. You give it rules, protocols, boundaries. Just like an athlete doesn't walk into the gym and do whatever they feel like, you don't show up to your day and hope for clarity. You install constraints. For example, set fixed blocks of time where your phone is off or in another room. Use visual cues, like a notebook or single open tab to anchor your attention. Keep your workspace visually clean. Every item in your visual field competes for neural processing. These aren't hacks. They're cognitive environmental design. Your brain is responding to input whether you know it or not. So stop letting your environment default to distraction. Let's also speak about mental loops, thought patterns that repeat with no resolution. These consume enormous cognitive bandwidth. Worrying, ruminating, replaying conversations, overanalyzing scenarios that haven't happened. All of these occupy working memory. One of the most effective tools to disrupt this loop is externalization. Write it down, say it aloud, create distance between the thought and the thinker. That act alone moves the brain from the limbic system, emotion, driven, to the prefrontal cortex, logic, driven. You can literally shift mental processing regions with a pen and paper. This is not about therapy, it's about function. If you're wasting time in your own head, give your thoughts a container. Don't carry mental weight longer than necessary. Let's also address the issue of overconsumption of information. In the digital age, knowledge is not scarce, attention is. People hoard podcasts, articles, quotes, summaries, yet apply very little of what they consume. The result, overload and stagnation. Learning isn't retention. Learning is transformation. If something you read or hear doesn't change your action, you haven't learned it. You've just entertained it. Create a rule. No new input unless it's tied to an immediate output. If you're reading something, apply it that day. If you're listening to something, act on it within 24 hours. This creates application, dependent memory consolidation, where your brain tags that information as relevant and therefore worth remembering. Otherwise, you're wasting time processing data that never turns into results. Another hidden drain on time is comparison. When you constantly scan what others are doing, especially in curated online formats, you fragment your identity. The brain is wired for social referencing, yes, but when done chronically, it activates feelings of lack, urgency, and self-doubt. That's not motivation, it's cortisol. Comparison creates chaos in your mental hierarchy. You stop pursuing what matters to you and start mimicking what seems urgent or validated externally. You want clarity, start with subtraction. Silence the noise long enough to hear your own mind again. Clarity doesn't come from adding more, it comes from focusing on less. You don't need 10 goals, you need one target and relentless consistency. Neuroscience supports this. The basal ganglia, which is responsible for habit formation and routine execution, performs best when you give it clear, repetitive signals. Ambiguity kills action. Simplicity fuels momentum. That means one priority per day. One deep focus block. One area of personal growth. Let the rest follow. When you reduce complexity, you increase precision. And precision compounds faster than scattered effort ever will. Now consider the cost of inaction, not just missed opportunities, but what happens inside your brain when you repeatedly delay, distract, or disengage. You start to hardwire avoidance as your response to challenge. That's not laziness, that's learned helplessness. The more you avoid, the more threatening the task becomes, but the more you confront, even in small ways, the less fear your brain assigns to it. So don't aim for massive breakthroughs. Aim for micro-confrontation. Open the file, start the draft, send the email, make the plan. Small actions break big loops. And finally, revisit your relationship to urgency. Most of what steals your attention pretends to be urgent. Notifications, inboxes, headlines, interruptions. But real urgency isn't outside you. It's inside, the quiet, pressing realization that your time here is finite, and you are training your brain with every hour you spend. You can either waste it in compulsive loops, or you can decide to master the mechanism behind your focus, attention, and behavior, and put it to work. That choice is neural, that choice is behavioral, and it's available right now.